Okay, so we're doing something a little different today.
Mm,
We're diving deep into the life and times of Donald J. Trump.
this should be good.
And not just like present day Trump, but like way back
Yeah.
before the whole White House thing.
Yeah, before politics was even a blip on the radar.
Exactly.
I
And
think that
you
seems like.
you sent over a ton of info.
Yeah, well,
A lot of it focusing on his like early years, his business career.
I figured those would be the most illuminating.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of Wikipedia in the mix.
Well, hey, it's a starting point, right?
I mean, yeah, it's like the Wikipedia rabbit hole.
Exactly.
You start there, and then who knows where you end up.
But it's fascinating stuff, right?
It really is. It's like we're trying to put together the psychological profile,
Mm-hmm.
like the pre-politics edition of Donald Trump.
Right, like what made this guy tick before Make America Great Again? Hats were even a thing.
Totally. And it's funny, right? Because you think of Trump,
Yeah.
and you think like skyscrapers, casinos, gold, everything.
Well, the gold, can't forget the gold.
But it all starts in, of all places, Queens, New York.
Humble beginnings, relatively speaking.
Right. And his family, I mean, real estate was practically the family business.
Yeah, his father, Fred Trump, he was no stranger to construction and deal-making.
So it's almost like he was destined for this path, or at least predisposed.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But here's the thing. Fred, he focused on middle-class housing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so for Donald to pivot towards luxury high-rises, casinos, that whole scene,
That says something, doesn't it?
it screams ambition to me.
Totally. And not just ambition, but like,
Like he had to outdo everyone,
Yeah.
right? Including his old man.
it wasn't enough to follow in Dad's footsteps. He had to, like, pave his own golden-lined path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And make sure everyone knew about it, of course.
Oh, absolutely. But, okay, before we get to the, like,
Yeah.
the skyscrapers and the casinos,
Right.
he did have that stint at the New York Military Academy, right?
Yes. Military school. That's a whole chapter.
It is, and I feel like it's got to be significant, right?
Oh, definitely. Sent there at 13. Imagine that.
Like, what kind of kid was he at 13?
Right. And suddenly it's all discipline, uniforms, hierarchy.
Total culture shock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some biographers even argue that this experience, imprinted on him.
Oh, interesting.
A love of hierarchy, strong leadership,
Yeah.
or at least Hayasa version of it.
Fascinating. So military school maybe instilled some discipline, maybe a bit of that, like, command mentality.
Who knows? Maybe it was already there.
True. Then it's off to college, right? First, Fordham University.
A classic New York education.
Exactly. And then, plot twist, a transfer to the Wharton School
Ooh, Warden.
at the University of Pennsylvania. Now, for those of us who,
Yeah, for those not fluent in Ivy League.
exactly, Wharton's kind of a big deal, right?
Not just a big deal, it's the deal thing.
Right.
Like Wall Street feeder school.
Whoa, okay, so it's not just about getting an education, it's about
It's about access, connections.
networking with the best of the best.
Exactly. If you're ambitious, like young Donald was, Wharton's the place to be.
So he graduates with an economics degree,
Makes sense.
which to me screams practicality.
Right. He was all about applying those theories, making that money.
Exactly. But here's where I get tripped up.
Okay.
He joins his dad's company, right?
Right.
But instead of, like, diving into Manhattan, which I would have thought, he's building middle-class housing in Brooklyn and Queens.
It's like he had to prove himself first, right? Learn the ropes from the ground up.
Even with an Ivy League degree.
It is then.
So even though he's working with his dad, there's still that ambition.
Oh, absolutely. You can practically hear the gears turning, him thinking, I can do this. Bigger, bolder.
And that's where 1971 comes in. Right?
1971, the year the Trump Organization was born.
He takes over the company, puts his name on it.
Classic power move.
Bold. Especially for a guy still relatively new to the game.
But that's Trump, right? He's not afraid to bet on himself.
No fear. And then finally, he sets his sights on Manhattan.
The big leagues.
Right. And I'm talking a grand entrance. He scores that deal to, like, revamp the Commodore Hotel.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one. Turning it into the Grand Hyatt, New York.
Huge. This feels like a turning point.
It was. It put him on the map, showed everyone he could play with the big boys in Manhattan real estate.
But it was a gamble, too, right?
Oh, a massive gamble. This wasn't flipping a brownstone in Brooklyn. This was high-stakes, high-profile redevelopment.
And it paid off.
In a big way.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Donald Trump was synonymous with luxury, with ambition.
And probably a few envious whispers, too.
Oh, I'm sure there were plenty.
Mhm.
But that risk-taking, that appetite for the big gamble, it becomes a recurring theme.
It's like he thrives on it, you know?
Absolutely. It's in his DNA.
Which brings us to, what else? Casinos.
Ah, yes. Atlantic City, here we come.
It's like the next level of risk, right?
Higher stakes, brighter lights, more everything.
And Trump dives in head first.
He doesn't just dip his toes, he does a cannonball.
He sets his sights on Atlantic City in the late 70s.
Prime time for casinos.
And boom. Trump Plaza opens in '84.
A palace of dreams. Or so we hoped.
Followed by Trump's castle in '85. I'm sensing a pattern here.
What, you mean the whole Trump thing?
It's like he wanted his name on everything.
More than just a name, though. It was a brand.
You're right.
A promise of luxury, of excess, of the Trump experience.
It's brilliant, actually, when you think about it.
Oh, he was a marketing genius, no doubt.
But let's not forget about the Taj Mahal.
Ah, the Taj. The eighth wonder of the world, as he called it.
He buys it in '88, right?
Yep, couldn't resist that kind of grandeur, could he?
He poured money into it, didn't he?
Money, time, everything. He was obsessed.
But it was also a financial black hole, wasn't it?
A costly lesson in overambition, some might say.
So which is it? Brilliant branding or just bad financial management?
Maybe a little of both. That's what makes him so fascinating.
Right.
The contradictions?
It's like he was playing by different rules, or maybe he thought the rules didn't apply to him.
That's a possibility.
So we've got this pattern, right? Boom and bust, incredible successes, and equally incredible setbacks.
And that pattern, my friend, is going to come up again.
I bet. Okay, before we connect those dots to politics, though,
Okay.
we got to talk about Trump Shuttle.
The airline.
Yeah, what was that one?
You know, Trump, he conquers one world, real estate, and then thinks, why not the skies, too? It's classic Trump, though, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, like, even the way he went about it.
Oh, absolutely. He didn't just start a little commuter airline.
No.
He buys a fleet of, like, what were they, Boeing 727s?
The big boys.
Slaps that gold trim on everything.
Of course. Had to.
Even has the audacity to challenge Eastern Airlines.
Oh, he was coming for them?
On the New York-Boston route, no less. Talk about a power move.
So this was never just about making money from an airline.
Money is part of it, sure, but this was about ego, about proving a point.
Bigger, bolder, more Trump than everyone else.
Always.
But, okay, let's be real here for a second.
Go on.
It's not like I see Trump Air flying around today, right?
Well, you're not wrong. The airline industry, it's a tough business, even for someone like Trump.
So, another gamble that didn't quite pan out.
You could say that.
Yeah.
He ended up selling it off a few years later.
Yeah, figures. But, okay, then there's the whole sports thing.
Oh, yeah, the USFL.
The New Jersey Generals. He owned a football team.
Sure did. Another one of those, why not, Trump ventures.
Right, like real estate, airlines, casinos, and now we're adding sports to the mix.
The man got around.
It's like he was addicted to these,
To these David and Goliath battles.
Yes. He always had to take on the establishment, challenge the status quo.
Some might say it was reckless.
Others might say it was ballsy.
Or maybe a little of both.
Probably. But, okay, we've got to talk about The Apprentice.
Yes, The Apprentice. His foray into reality TV.
Seriously, how does a real estate mogul,
who also dabbled in airlines and football,
right, suddenly become this, TV personality?
It was a stroke of genius, really.
It really was. It's like he invented a whole new career path for himself.
And he nailed it. Those branding instincts, they were sharp.
He understood how to create a persona that people,
They either loved him or loved to hate him, but they couldn't ignore him.
And you're fired became, a cultural phenomenon.
Instant catchphrase.
It's wild. He went from businessman to, pop culture icon.
Don't underestimate the power of good TV, my friend.
But it was smart, too, right? I mean,
Incredibly savvy.
The Apprentice wasn't just entertainment.
It was a platform.
Exactly. He was in your living room every week.
Shaping perceptions.
Whether you realized it or not.
He understood that in the public eye, image is everything.
Okay, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the personal life a bit, right?
Oh, the Trump family dramas. Yeah. That could be a whole deep dive on its own.
3 marriages, 5 kids.
And a whole lot of tabloid fodder along the way.
That's a lot of life experience, a lot of relationships.
And it all played out, at least to some extent, on the public stage.
Because that's the thing with Trump, right? He's not just a businessman or a TV personality. He's this
force of nature.
Yeah, like a magnet for attention, good or bad.
And he seemed to thrive on it.
So the question is, how much of this pre-political life,
all the ambition, the risks, the spectacles,
how much of it shaped his political approach?
That's what we're going to unpack next.
So we've got this larger-than-life businessman, reality TV star, master of branding, and then boom, he's running for president. Like, was that always the plan, or was it a total curveball?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. It wasn't some, like, impulsive whim.
Really?
No. Trump had been circling politics for decades, like testing the waters, making noise.
You're kidding. I always thought, like, the 2015 campaign, that was his first real foray into politics.
Nope. Way back in 1988, he actually formed an exploratory committee for a presidential run.
Get out.
It's true. And get this, even attended the Reform Party convention in 2000.
So it was out there. It wasn't like a secret.
It was right there in the open, but nobody really took it seriously at the time.
I guess nobody saw, like, the apprentice Trump pivoting to the White House back then.
Right. But it makes you wonder, what was he waiting for all those years?
Yeah, like, why not pull the trigger sooner?
Honestly, who knows with this guy? But if I had to guess, based on everything we've discussed, it seems like he needed the right moment, the right stage to make his move.
He wasn't content with, like, being a senator or a governor.
Oh, please, are you kidding? This man thrives on being the biggest, the boldest.
He had to go for the top job.
Exactly. Nothing else would do.
And when he finally did jump in, he knew how to make an entrance.
Oh, that golden escalator descent in Trump Tower. Iconic.
Melania by his side. The whole thing was pure showmanship.
He always understood the power of a good visual.
And the speech itself, I mean, classic Trump.
Make America great again.
Build the wall.
These weren't just policy positions, they were slogans, rallying cries.
They knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, he knew how to tap into people's emotions.
Especially that segment of America that felt like nobody was listening to them.
The ones who felt ignored by the so-called elites, by the establishment.
He gave them a voice, even if it was a voice shouting things they didn't necessarily agree with.
And that's the paradox, isn't it? His lack of political experience, which should have been a weakness, it became his greatest strength.
He was the outsider, the disruptor.
The one who didn't play by the rules because he was going to rewrite them.
And honestly, it's like he turned the whole election into a reality show.
Which, let's be real, he was uniquely qualified to do.
And the ratings were through the roof.
Everybody was watching, even if they didn't want to admit it.
But even with all that, nobody could have predicted he would actually win.
And yet he did. Against all odds, he defeated Hillary Clinton.
Which is still kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It just goes to show that his brand of populism, his mastery of media, his ability to connect with a certain segment of voters, it was a force to be reckoned with.
So as we look back at this whole journey from Queens to the Oval Office, what's the biggest takeaway here?
I think the biggest lesson is that the lines between business entertainment and politics, they're not as clear as we thought.
They're blurry.
Exactly. Trump's story shows that success in one arena can translate into power in another.
Especially in this day and age where media is everything.
It's a cautionary tale in some ways, but it's also a reminder that we're living in extraordinary times.
And as for Trump himself, well, he may be out of office.
But his impact on American politics, on our culture, it's going to be felt for years to come.
It's crazy to think that it all started with real estate in Queens.
Right. And look where it led him. Fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. So to our listeners out there, keep asking those questions. Keep seeking out different perspectives.
Keep digging for those hidden truths.
That's what it's all about. And on that note, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring. Okay, so we're doing something a little different today. We're diving deep into the life and times of Donald J. Trump.
This should be good.
And not just like present-day Trump, but like way back before the whole White House thing.
Yeah, before politics